What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Story Time with the Anthony KT. Welcome. Yes, it's good to see all of you again. So, we're going to do things a little bit differently for this week's episode of Story Time with the Anthony KT. So, by different, we're going to start with previous. So, previously on Story Time with the Anthony KT, we were on chapter 12, which was called Old Habits Die Hard, in which it was months into Zoe and Charles dating, and old habits from their past and how they were after their significant others had passed away were slowly coming back. And where I'm gonna start from previous is we get to a point where Charles and Zoe are sitting at a table and they're having dinner, and they start having this talk, this serious talk, as they notice their habits, their old habits of how they used to be, are starting to slowly come into their relationship as they're pushing each other away. Excuse me. So there's a sentence that Charles shares with Zoe. There's a sentence that Charles shares with Zoe, in which that he keeps on his phone that says, "I am the black sheep. I don't deserve anything good." When Zoe asks what he meant by that sentence, it involves his. It's a long story. Charles tells Zoe that it's a long story, but it involves family from his mother and father's side and how he was treated. And then he goes on and he tells Zoe why he wrote those words. So I'm going to read this part, and this is from this was from chapter 12, in which it's called Old Habits Die Hard, and this is towards the end of that chapter. When I wrote those words, I believed them. I didn't think I deserved anything good. To be in two relationships and to have them end the way they did, it all felt like a sign in that moment. And then I said yes to being a best man. Went to a wedding, and looking as beautiful as you did brought the light back into my life, and I never thought I would see you again. And now here you are, and I don't want you to ever feel sorry. We have both been distant. We have both kept our walls up. We have both kept our walls up, partly up, and our hearts partly closed. These last few months have been amazing, but scary for me too. Scared to lose all that we have the same way I lost everything I had with Mandy. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose all that we have and everything we could have. Sometimes old habits die hard, Charles said. So what do we do? Zoe said. We ask ourselves, how much do we want this? Charles said. Zoe had nothing else to say after that. They finished their dinner. Charles drove Zoe home, and before Zoe got out of the car, she kissed Charles's hand, and then she closed the passenger door behind her. And Charles went home, not knowing what was going to happen next, except knowing that he had work tomorrow. And that's how chapter 12 ends. Old Habits Die Hard. Now, I read that because all of that sets up for what we're going to read in for the two parts I'm going to read for chapter 12, in which is called Finding Happiness. And we're going to dive right into that right now. But before I do that, so that was previously on Storytime with Anthony KT, and I wanted to set you up for chapter 13 by reading the ending of chapter 12, because that ending is the perfect setup for what I'm going to be reading for chapter 13, in which is called Finding Happiness. But before I get into that, really quick, if you'd like to read The Unexpected from start to finish, the link is in the bio. Go ahead, you'll find it there, as well as many other stories, as well as my book, In the Dark the Sun Will Rise, and also A Walk Through London. Both of those books are available now on barnesandnoble.com and on Amazon. And my new book, which comes out on Tuesday, September 24th, on Amazon, My Life in a Nutshell. It's a story about my life. It's a story about love. It's a story about family. It's a story about loss. It's a story about mental health. It's a story about my life. And I hope you all check it out. It's available September 24th on Amazon. The link will be in the bio for that as well on September 24th, so you'll be able to check it out then. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's get into chapter 13 of The Unexpected, Finding Happiness. The next day, Charles woke up and got ready for work. But this time, there was no smile on his face. But he wasn't sad or feeling depressed either. Charles didn't have any expression on his face. He thought about the sentence he wrote after Mandy's death, and the same sentence he shared with Zoey. I am the black sheep. I don't deserve anything good. Charles thought about those very words and the kiss on his hand from Zoey. Last night felt like a goodbye kiss. Charles felt like that sentence was still holding true to it. That he is the black sheep and he doesn't deserve anything good. Charles knew everything he had with Mandy was good. What he was starting to have with Zoey was good, and to feel the feeling that Zoey could be gone. As Charles laid in bed, he said to himself out loud, I don't deserve anything good. Charles then got out of bed, took a shower, got dressed, and went off to work. Zoey woke up not with a smile on her face, not feeling sad or depressed either. Zoey woke up not knowing how to feel. She woke up thinking about Charles and how she kissed Charles's hand and said goodnight last night. Zoey had wished she had said something, but in that moment she didn't know what to say. Zoey woke up still not knowing what to say or do. As humans, we are our worst everything. The battles we have with ourselves are some of our greatest battles, and sometimes they are also our greatest tests. Zoey went to work knowing what to do as a producer. She knew how to handle any problem that could and would come up at the station. But when it came to Charles, she was scared and unsure. She wasn't unsure of how she felt about Charles. She liked Charles and enjoyed her time with him. What Zoey was unsure about was what being in a relationship with Charles meant. But when it came to her work, Zoey was very sure about that. So Zoey just focused on her work and waited for the right words to come to her before talking to Charles again. And that, my friends, is chapter 13, Finding Happiness of the Unexpected. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode. Again, if you would like to read The Unexpected from start to finish, the link is in the bio, as well as the same link for A Walk Through London, In the Dark the Sun Will Rise, and my new book, which will be out September 24th, My Life in a Nutshell. Hope you check all three of those books out, as well as this story, if you'd like to go ahead and read that from start to finish. And I will be here next week for a new episode of Storytime with Anthony KT as we dive into chapter 14. We're getting close. We're getting close to the end of this book, which means we're getting close to the end of this season of Storytime with Anthony KT. But I'll see you on next week's episode. Until then, peace, y'all.